have one person. That's good.
Yes, exactly. So hopefully some others will join us. But hey, you know what? We have replays for a reason. I know I saw a couple of people saying that they had some things going on tonight. Hey, Faith. I told Lenora is in the know about where you are. Oh, this is great. So for everyone joining later in the replay, just want to say welcome to you guys as well. I am super excited. We are going to dive right in because I don't want to take any of our time because I cannot wait to get all of these answers from Lenora Worth, who is absolutely fantastic, as sweet as pumpkin pie, and well, sweeter than pumpkin pie. Anyway, and so we're going to have a great night. So I'm going to start off right now with this question and you actually answered this. I think Faith had asked you, or someone had asked you earlier in the week about this. And so I'm looking forward to hearing your answer from your mouth in addition to reading it. So what was your inspiration behind the Sweetheart Deal, which for those of you guys, this is the book that her featured book, although she has more than 100. Yay, Faith has her copy too. Right, so I'm going to hush. Now you answer.
Well, it kind of started with my husband and I. We met when we were very young. Like he was, I think, 5 and I was 6.5. I'm 18 months older than him. And my sister she had just gotten married, and she lived in a little cottage behind his grandparents. They built this little house and rented it out. And so he would come to visit his grandparents, and I'd come to visit her, and we would play together. And she got me a kiddie pool, and I tell people that's the first time he ever saw me with my shirt off. And many years later, of course, but anyway, so he would come to the door and say, "Can Lenora come out and play?" And I'd come out and we'd play, run around. And so his father was military, so he traveled a lot, and he moved away, and he came back in grammar school, and I would see him at the swimming pool and around town. And then he came back in high school finally, and I told my friend, "That's the man I'm going to marry." And she's like, "Well, not if I get to him first." And I said, "You will not get him." And so I married him. And I thought, what if there were two people that made a pact like that? And I could see the characters in my head, and I wanted to do kind of a beachy story because I live in Florida now. And I thought, well, I'll just come up with this bay where everybody who goes there, it's Sweetheart Bay, and most people fall in love. And so he loved her from kindergarten. And the other part of that is when my son was in kindergarten, they took pictures, and he came home and told me that he was going to marry this little girl. And I said, "Well, why did you pick her?" And he said, "Well, when we took pictures today, she had on a white dress, and it looked like a wedding dress." So, of course, they didn't get married. But so those two things gave me the idea for this book. And it's not based on my family, but it's all fiction. But that was how I got started with it in my head. And I really didn't pitch it to anybody because I knew Love Inspired they don't like beachy books for some reason, lakes and mountains, but they just don't do a lot of beachy books. And then I thought, well, I think I just might do it myself. What could it hurt? So it was a process, but I did get it done, and now it's out there.
Awesome. And we're so glad that it is. So I have a couple of follow-up questions. So when you were growing up, where did you live?
I grew up in a little town about 4 hours from here in southwest Georgia. It was about an hour above Tallahassee. And we came to Florida. I came to Florida with my parents to see my dad's uncle and his wife. And they lived in Panama City, and they lived in the cutest little house. And they would sit in the breezeway, and I would go up on the front porch and read. And she got me started reading when I was older, the nurse books, the first romances I ever read. And she was a nurse, so she would tell me, "Be very careful with these books. I want them back." And when I was probably 13 or 14, and all through my teen years, she would, give me books. And when I went down there with them, that was the first time I ever saw the Gulf, and I just fell in love with it. And now we moved to Atlanta after we got married, and he worked for General Motors for many, many years. And then we got transferred to Louisiana, to Shreveport, and we'd gone to New Orleans several times, and I love Louisiana. And so anyway, we spent most of our life there, 30-something years, and he retired early. And then he had a job as like a roadie, kind of an older roadie, but he loved it. And I had a job doing social interviews, and sometimes we'd run into each other at the same events. Got a lot of stories about that too, because he looked like a roadie and I was all dressed up. And people were like, "Why is she with him?" And I'm like, "He's my husband." Anyway, so here we are. We moved to Florida to be near family. Our daughter lives in Fort Walton, and her son lives in Tallahassee. So
Nice. Oh, it's so wonderful to be near family.
yes.
That. All right. So, kind of what you talked about toward the end about making this an indie published book leads into my next question that I am not going to lie. I have been so excited to talk to you about this for a year, ever since, or no, what has it been, 2 years now? I don't know, almost 2 years.
Yeah, the book's been out over a year now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we met at the Louisiana Book Festival, you were in the process.
Probably 2 or 3 years, yes.
Yeah. Yay.
Yes.
Okay. So, The Sweetheart Deal is your first indie published book. So how was this process compared to your experience with traditional publishing? And I would love to hear the pros and cons to each for you, because there are pros and cons to every way to publish. And so I'm very curious to hear yours. And then, and I think I know the answer to this one. Do you plan to indie publish more books?
Well, since I've written, next year will be 30 years with Love Inspired, but I had written 5 books before I sold to them. So really it's more like 34 years of being published. Well, I sold my first book in 1993, so next year will be 34 years. So I've written, so many traditional books. And when you work for a big company like Harlequin, they have so many imprints, and they have such a reach with promotions and getting your books out there. So that kind of spoiled me. And before I got my books published, I worked for a Mary Kay lady, and she and her husband gave me the best advice. They said, this is your business, and you're all on your own. You're the boss. And she was very successful. She had the pink Cadillac and very successful. And she said, "I'm my own boss, and if I don't get out there and do the work, I don't make money." So it's like that with indie. You're the boss from the beginning. And when I first sat down to write the book, I thought, I'm just going to write the book, and then I'll worry about getting it published. So I did, and it just so happened that my editor for many, many years with Love Inspired, she had retired, and she was doing freelance. So she proofed it for me the first time around. And then my daughter is a copy editor, so she proofed it too. And of course, we still found mistakes after that. And so it was a process. But what happened was I had another friend who had gone indie, and she said, "Just let me know and I'll walk you through it." So she literally sent me like pages of she just exactly how to do it. Even though I could have gone to, Kindle, or I could have gone to Atticus, which is what I use, and they could have walked me through it, but she just wrote it all down for me. So that helped a lot with the formatting, getting it ready, and so I put it into Atticus, which is like Vellum. It's a program that helps you publish an indie book, and that was the learning curve. I mean, it's a process, just learning how to format, which once you learn it, it's easy. And then you have to learn how to edit it in the written form or the format form. You have to make sure all the chapters are lined up. and that every word is clear and you don't bump something from this page to that page. I'm not kidding. I downloaded it on Kindle Direct Publishing 21 times before I got it right. Yes. And because I would find errors, other people would find, where like my dialogue would just, instead of having a, next paragraph, it would just all merge together and I'd have to go in and read. And anytime you bumped a page or changed something, everything behind it would bump. So you learn from that, or I did. And it took me several proofs to finally get it where I thought if there's any mistakes now, I just don't even want to hear about it, because I've tried so hard to keep it clean and fresh. And there were days when I thought I was going to pull all my hair out. My husband said, "You need to hire people." Excuse me, allergies. And I haven't had to hire, well, I've hired people to do the cover, and now I'm redoing the cover because that one didn't go over very well. I kind of liked it, but it's a little moody. And the woman who did it, though, was a great, she's great artist. So she didn't do anything wrong. She did exactly what I told her to do, but I'm going to try a different cover and see if that helps a little bit. So it was a learning curve. It's a lot different from traditional because you are the boss. You have to hire people, cover, edits, if you want to help with the formatting, the media, the ads, whatever. I just now learned how to do ads. And so I had somebody walk me through. The best thing, the advice is know people that will help you. Know people who've already been through it and can help you do it. And I've had a lot of good friends that have helped me through that first book. And I just today pulled out a novella that I'm going to put up. It's a Christmas novella, but I'm going to do a Christmas in July promo with it. And I had to remember how to format it, and that took all afternoon. And it's short. It's like 98 pages, but so I'm going to get that out there next and practice on it a little bit before I jump into. But I hope to continue, Indy. I have a whole series that's going to be set in Sweetheart Bay, and I'm going to put that as the first book in a series when I go back in with the new cover. So you learn as you go, and it takes me a while. I'm old school, but if you can walk me through it once, I usually figure it out. And I'm learning too with KDP. They will answer any questions, and there are people who can help you. I'm on a lot of groups that can help me too. So I highly recommend that if you're an author, you should try it at least once or twice. And I'm just going to keep at it as long as my fingers work. So did that answer all those questions?
Yes. I am very excited that you've got a series in the works planned for this, and I love Sweetheart Bay. So is there a particular place on the coast that might have inspired this setting a little bit? Or is it kind of a mashup?
The Big Bay here. There's several, there's the Pensacola Bay, and then there's, if I can pronounce it correctly, the Chata, I'd have to get it out and read it. It's the big Choctaw Bay, but that's what we call it. But it is huge. I mean, it's near Destin, and it's near a town called Niceville, where a friend of mine who's an author lives. And we're an hour from it here where I live. It's an hour to get to that bay, but it is a massive bay. And so it has lots of little bays on that bay, the same bay. It's like, I used to live on the East Bay, but it was really part of Pensacola Bay. So I thought I'll just make the Sweetheart Bay a part of the bigger bay, and it's set near Destin, which I love. And I love living near the beaches. I've just always, the beach is where I go and walk and get my inspiration. So it's a fictional, but it's based on kind of the bay where I lived for a while. But it's more of a beachy bay. That one was more of a inland bay, and so it was just fun, and the characters were fun, and it was completely different from being on my own and being able to just write it with no deadline yet, and just let my imagination go, and see what happens.
Awesome.
So
Did you feel like you were did you like that better than the oversight and the deadlines and all of that?
at the time I did because, as I said, I've been doing this for 33 years, and the last 15 years were back-to-back contracts, and I was blessed. I had like 6-book contract. I had to write 6 books in 3 or 4 years. Some people can do it faster. Some people, like me, ask for extra time. And we were in the process of moving and had a lot of people in our families were passed away, and um, we moved closer to home to visit everybody in Georgia, and most of them have passed away. Brothers and sisters. We both lost our parents when we were in our 20s and 30s, and so I'm glad we got to see all of them before they passed away. But a lot of it was happening when I was writing all these books, and it was going back and forth. And we decided when we bought this house as kind of a weekend home that we would move in it when our son was living with us at the time, and he moved out, and we thought, well, now we'll just we'll downsize again, and we did. And moving here was it was just took it was a whole new world. I love it here. It's a smaller town, different atmosphere, but I'm only an hour away from all the beaches. So, but yeah, I hit a wall kind of. I had done a lot of suspense, and I just couldn't do that anymore. It was starting to affect me emotionally when you constantly digging into research on serial killers and people who've murdered people, and it just started. I couldn't do it anymore as much as I loved it, so I just needed a break from that. And I thought, I told my editors, I was going to take a break, and I did. And I did write a couple more Amish books, and so I had stuff to do. But that year that I wrote this book, I just took it easy and didn't push myself. And it was hard to get back into this book because I'd written like the first 2 or 3 chapters, and it took a while because we were moving, and then we got sick with COVID, and then we've gotten sick 3 times since we moved with these weird. So that's one reason I sound like I do. But anyway, once I got into it, I really enjoyed, and I gave myself some grace. I said, if you can only write 500 words a day, that's what you do. And so I would sometimes get in here after lunch, and I'd write 500, 1,000 words, but I made myself write a little bit every day so I could get back into the rhythm. And I think that's helped a lot. So, but yeah, it was a joy to write it.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question before I see if our readers have some questions for you. And this one is really geared toward our authors, because I do know that we have a few writers in our community, actually several authors, all of our featured authors, our authors of the roundtable, they were in here too. But I would love to know, especially like I mentioned earlier, you've got more than 100 published books. I know you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. What advice would you give to new authors, but also what advice would you give even to like authors who may have put a book or two out? What advice would you give?
well, there's so many things. Go with your gut, and I always hear people at conferences say, I want to be the next Nora Roberts, or I want to be the next Karen Kingsbury. And I'm like, well, that's really good, but why don't you be the first you? Because you are a very distinctive person, and your stories might be different from their stories. And we all would aspire to be like those two. And but you have to be true to yourself, and you have to know where to draw that line on what you're willing to do as a published commercial fiction. And that's another thing I would give people advice on. We write commercial fiction when we write for Harlequin or any of the big publishers. There's literary fiction, which is written every day, and I love it. I love to read it. But I knew I'd probably never write that type of deep book that takes you 10 years to figure out what they were actually talking about. And I knew I could write a short love story. So you have to pick what fits you. If you want to write a literary book and take 5 years to write it and then another 5 to try to sell it, you can. Some people sell them overnight, and that's fine. But if you write commercial fiction, which is what I've written for 33 years, know that you're writing as part of a group. You're like, there's the commanders, the generals, the majors, and we're the foot soldiers. We bring in the money that helps everybody else, and so you have to follow the guidelines. And I've had people send stuff to Love Inspired, and it's not what they're looking for. You can't send an 1800 war book to Love Inspired. They're not going to publish it because they don't do historicals anymore, and if they did, it wouldn't be that type of book. It would have to be a love story and not too dark. So a lot of times people make that mistake. They just latch on to whatever market they see without doing their research, without sitting down to read the books. Because I tell people, read our books and see if you like them. And they're saying, oh, you just want me to buy books. I said, no, I want you to learn how to be a writer. And if you're going to write this type of book, you need to be studying. We all write differently. And you can read 5 different Love Inspireds and have 5 different opinions or totally different stories. So you really have to read to learn how to write.
Thank you. That was like, I just did a couple of workshops in my library system, and that was like my number one thing, was to tell them to read. The best way to learn to be a good writer is to read the stuff that you want to write.
Because I remember when I was given those nurse books, and I thought, I could probably write something like this, not maybe a nurse, but I could write about a man and woman falling in love. And then when we moved to Atlanta, I met a neighbor, and she introduced me to some of the romance novels back then. And these were the really steamy historicals. And I thought, well, I don't know if I could write this, but then I started reading some of the shorter books that Harlequin brought out, and there was Love Swept, there was Silhouette, there were all these books. And when we moved to Shreveport, I had tried to write when we lived in Atlanta this one book, and I finally got it published 50 years later. But I worked on that, and it got a rejection, and I was sad, but I wasn't going to give up. And we moved to Shreveport, and I was in the mall, and I saw these women autographing books, and I walked up and said, I'd like to write a book like this one day. And they said, well, come join our chapter. And that's how I learned about RWA, the Romance Writers of America. And that's where that little group, and there was one in South Louis. We were NOLA, and the South one was SOLA. And I was a member of both of them. And I would go down to New Orleans and Baton Rouge and do talks once I got established. But that's where I first realized, I can write a short category romance. And so I started working hard on that. And I realized I didn't want to write steamy. And I had just gotten an agent, or we were about to sign, and she heard about Love Inspired. And she said, I know you would rather write the sweet, more inspirational. Well, there's a line coming out. And I'm like, really? And so I had my first interview. It was in Dallas, I think, or Dallas or Houston. And I was so nervous with the paper I was trying to read. She said, just give it to me and I'll read it. And she read it, the blurb, and she said, well, send me 3 chapters and a proposal. And I did. And like 3 weeks later, they bought my first book, Love Inspired book. So, and that was, before that, I had met a woman in New Orleans at RWA, and that's when I sold my first book to Avalon, which was a library. They only went into the libraries. I didn't make a lot of money, but I did sell a book, and I sold 3 to them and 2 to another company called Leisure, which is no longer, and they were more historical. And then I found Love Inspired. So that's here I am.
I was about to say, that's kind of become your home for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's been good to me. And I was able to write what I felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that, and still appreciate that. And, it helped me. I had asked God, just let me make enough money to help my family. And, I did. I got my kids through college, and even, a couple of times went back and took some courses myself, but it helped with a lot of things. So
It's wonderful. Well, all right. I want to see if our readers have any questions for you. So y'all feel free to unmute or drop your comments in the thing. Or Faith, I think, is still driving, but
I'm driving, but I have the phone balanced on my knee, so I'm not looking at you. But is this book, the one, your indie book, is it selling as well as the ones that you put out through Love Inspired?
no. It did okay when it first came out, but it's not nearly the numbers I have with Love Inspired. And I'm going to keep working harder on that. And that's some good advice too. When you do your first indie, don't expect to get rich. Some people can, some people can't.
Yeah. I was wondering if, like, you had so many books out through Love Inspired, if that carried over into success for this book, or if the marketing done by Love Inspired really drives numbers. And it sounds like it does.
I think it's the marketing, because the Love Inspired, they have, what they call their book club, where people just are signed up to get every book that comes out that month. And that's where we make a lot of our money.
Yeah.
They don't pay us a lot, but it's the volume. And with this being a single title on my own, it did pretty well, but it didn't do as well as I expected. But that is normal when you start your first. It's like, I said with the Mary Kay lady, you got to work your way up till you can get to that pink Cadillac, and I'm not quite there yet. But I'm still going to keep doing it.
You want to keep doing indie publishing?
I do. I want to do it because I'm kind of going to retire a little bit, and that way I can do it on my own timeline, and I can set a budget and know how much I want to get as far as the return on my investment. And I'm just going to take it slow. And I know that everybody who is indie and successful, they said you have to be consistent, and you have to have a lot of inventory. And that's when you start doing ads, and that's when it's like a domino effect. You start making a little bit of money. So it's like any business you start out on, you're going to have to loan yourself some money, and then you put that money back into the business until you're out of the red. And it might take me a while to do that. But I'm going to keep doing it.
So now, one more question. When you say have some inventory, do you literally mean you have physical copies of your book on hand, or do you mean write enough indie books to have a collection, if you will?
Well, to write, what I mean by volume and in inventory is on Amazon. When you can get as many books, indie books on Amazon, especially series. Readers love the series, and I just learned today on another Zoom that the Kindle Unlimited readers, they read very fast. They read like 5 books a week. And so they like it when they can go download that ebook, read it in 2 or 3 hours, turn around and read the next one. That's what drives it. And so I need to have a library on Kindle or on Amazon of indie books that readers can come in, and if they like the first one, they'll buy the second one, the third one, and it is a domino thing. They tell 5 people, then they tell 5 people, and then you sell 15 or 20 books, and that's how it goes. So it would be like if you were standing on the side of the road selling oranges and apples, and you only had 1 carton of apples, and then you have no more. If you've got 5 cartons of apples, you're going to make 5 times as much money when you sell them. So,
yeah,
that's great advice. I've heard that multiple times. I'm at 7 books. I feel like things will start to turn around when I hit 10 and keep going. And then when I get that fantasy series, like that's going to be, because like you said,
fantasy is really selling well right now. And I will say this, at this time, it's kind of slowed down for everybody, even the high up money makers. And 10 years ago, I could have probably made more money, but I wasn't ready 10 years ago. People kept saying, you need to do indie. And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I'll know when I'm ready. And I did. I knew exactly the day that I was ready. And I had a 5-year plan. And I'm now in the 2nd year of that 5 years. So I'm going to give myself, hopefully I can stay here a little longer and I'm not getting any younger, but give myself that time to see it through. So yes, if you've got 7 books out, it will probably start getting even better for you. So it's a business.
It is. So any other questions from our readers?
So clearly indie is harder to get started in. But if you do well, is there like more potential for financial success in indie than writing under a publisher? Like if you manage to, to catch the public's attention and sell?
There is. I mean, it just depends. It depends on the book, the timing, what's hot and what's really selling, and I wouldn't follow the market, and say, oh, I'm going to do that type of book unless you really have a book like that in your heart. Like this book, I wanted to write as a book of my heart rather than a book that had all these stipulations and guidelines, and just be free like I was when I first started writing, just be free to write and then worry about the rest. With indie, you can do that, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to make a lot of money. And I will do the same thing with indie that I did when I prayed to just become a writer. I just want to have a little bit of an income, just a security. The 5 love languages, mine is security. And I like to know that my family will be taken care of. And so there's a lot of opportunities in both traditional and in indie. And it's a good time to be a writer because we have several different choices. We can do indie, we can do hybrid. I've done some hybrid and done pretty good. Or we can do all out traditional. So there are lots of choices.
It's an exciting time to be a writer, that's for sure.
It really is. It really is. And I'm glad, because if I didn't have indie to keep me occupied, I could get in a lot of trouble. Just being retired and not sitting around, going through catalogs and I'll buy that. I tell myself, write first, buy later when you have the money in the bank.
There you go.
So Martha, I like my shoe money.
Yeah, that's great. Martha, did you have a question?
No, not any question in particular. Just was going to mention that I've read a number of Lenora's love-inspired books and enjoyed them over the years.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
I have enjoyed writing them. Sometimes it gets tough, but for the most part, I have enjoyed writing them. There's very few that I have had a lot of trouble with. Sometimes the editing is hard and I have to kind of negotiate. And if I can back my prerogative up with data, I usually get my way. And so when you tell somebody, especially with suspense, when you tell somebody she can't be flying the helicopter and then rappel out of it with her dog, somebody's got to fly the helicopter. And I had to back that up by talking to 2 or 3 military people who said, no, she can't do that. my
Hooray
editor
for
was like,
research.
well, just make it work. I'm like, no, there's no making that work. So sometimes I had to be firm and stand my ground. And, I've always heard, listen to your editor, but I say, listen to your editor, but follow your gut. If your gut is telling you that's not going to work, then sit down with your editor and have a talk and say, look, I just can't write it that way. And sometimes you can get it straightened out and worked out. So for the most part, I've had really good editors, one or two that almost did me in, but that's life, so I can't complain.
We've got like 3 minutes left, so I'm going to ask one more question to close us out. And
Okay.
I'm not going to go with the one that I've been asking everybody to close out. I'm going to ask you a different one.
Okay.
I would love to hear some of your favorite interactions that you've had with readers over the years.
Oh, I've had, my readers, they are so beautiful. Well, I'll give you one. We just moved here to Definiak Springs about 4 years ago, and there's this beautiful little independent bookstore here that I go to a lot called the Sage and Dragonfly. And she told me, the woman that owns it, she said, there's a woman here in town that reads all your books. And she said she's an older woman. Her husband is he's an invalid, and she can only come on like certain mornings. She brings all of them back, and then she buys more, and she gives her discount because it's used books and new books. And so she said, I would love to set it up where you could come and meet her at the store. So I said, sure, I'll do that. So I got dressed up and went to the store, and she said, now she's coming in with her daughter. And her daughter knows that you're going to be here. So she sat me in a chair in the corner, and this sweet little old lady walks in with her daughter, and she has this list on an index card of books she's read of mine, and she's either wants to get those or she's telling Gay, the woman who runs it, I don't need these. So she's up there talking to Gay, and Gay said, well, wouldn't it be nice if you could just talk to Lenora? And she said, yes. And she said, well, turn around and look. And she had walked right past me, She turned around, and I thought she was going to have a heart attack. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. She was crying. I was crying. We were all crying. It was like, and she was so sweet. And I had some books there for her. And I have her address. I need to send her cards because she's probably not doing well now. But her husband, she said, I can only come at this time of day. And she was just it was so sweet. And Gay did write a blog about it on her blog. I think if you just go to sageanddragonfly.com, you can find it. But anyway, that was really sweet. And then when I first went to ACFW one year, and I'd been published probably about 10 years, I sat down next to this pretty woman, and she did her hand like,
Lenora, if we get cut off, just
Yeah.
use the same link and hop back in, and we'll continue your story.
Oh,
okay?
that's okay. She just was sitting there pointing at me saying, this is Lenora Worth. And I'm like, baby, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. But it's people like that that make you happy with what you do. And lots of stories like that where readers are they send me things. They're just lovely people.
That's awesome.
Unless you kill off a character they don't like, and then they do like.
Uh-oh, yeah.
Anyway.
This is wonderful. Thank you for being with us tonight, Lenora.